Good afternoon and welcome to the We Are Here, UW-Madison from an international student perspective. My name's Samantha McCabe. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am just here to do a brief introduction of four wonderful international student panelists we have here who will introduce themselves and to wish you all a happy International Education Week. Yes, and Diversity Forum. So yay, we have a lot to celebrate this week. So thank you all for attending this really important session. I just wanted to take a brief moment to explain the format of today. This is a little bit different than your normal panel session. This is a fishbowl session, but we've brought them to the front of the room instead of in the middle. And these four students will be having a conversation amongst themselves for about 1 hour of our 1 hour and 15-minute session. And then we will open it up to questions from our in-person and our virtual audiences. And we will have a microphone being passed around for that question and answer time. So yes, please refrain from asking questions or raising your hand in the middle of their conversation, and they'll be conversing amongst themselves and sharing their own personal experiences with each of you today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Subodh.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this forum in here. We are four students from UW-Madison, different backgrounds, a lot of different experiences, a lot of different timelines in terms of our academics as well. We have Dorcas, and I'd like to start from Dorcas. I'd request her to introduce herself to the crowd.
Hi, my name is Dorcas Donko. I'm a first-year Master of Public Affairs student at the La Follette School of Public Affairs. I serve as an international peer advisor at the International Student Services. And I'm from Ghana. My hometown is Mumford. She okay. I'll say there. Yeah. I'll pass it on to her.
Hello everyone, my name is Alan Machen. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm a third-year student here at UW-Madison studying finance, investment, and banking. I'm an international reach ambassador as well. I've been one for more than 2 years at this point. And I am from Almaty, Kazakhstan. Almaty translates from Kazakh language as the city of apples. So to people who are from Wisconsin, I tell that I'm from Kazakh version of Appleton.
Hi everybody, thanks so much for coming. I'm Hayane, my pronouns are she, they. I'm from Brazil, more specifically from Cuiabá, Mato Grosso. That's in the middle of nowhere, that's totally okay. It's the middle of the state, so yeah. I'm a third-year undergrad, and those are my majors and certificates. There's a little bit too many of them, so it's right there. I am a reach ambassador. I've been doing that just like Alan for about 2 years now. I'm also a member of the International Student Advisory Board. Also, this is my second year doing that, and yeah, I'm excited to talk a little bit more.
Thank you, Hayane. Hello, everyone. I am Subodh Subedi. I am a sixth-year PhD student here in mechanical engineering. Almost there. Thank you. Thank you. I was born and raised in Nepal. I am from Kathmandu, the capital city of Nepal. And yes, I have not climbed Mount Everest yet. And I don't plan to. But on a very bright, clear day, I can see it from my window back home. I've been a part of international student community for a long time now, 7 years. Even here at UW-Madison, I have been part of different student organizations, as well as the international. Recently, I was a member of International Student Advisory Board for the last year. Yes, and welcome you all. We'll start with our discussions. We'll go with Dorcas first. How do you wish people knew about your international student experience at UW-Madison?
Thank you, Subodh. So, coming from a very small community in Ghana, the central region, my experiences here kind of stems from that. As a very typical first-generation student, got this opportunity, have to travel out of the country for the first time, be on a plane for the first time. It was a surreal experience for me, and getting here, having to figure out transportation system, how things will work here, and all that, and having the support system, especially from the La Follette School, to figure this out, and the International Student Services, of course. It was a big blow for me. I mean, having all figured out, at least in Ghana, and coming here as a totally stranger, kind of, yeah. Things were a bit difficult at first for me, especially with my identity. I found myself constantly questioning whether I deserve to be here, imposter syndrome. Then I remembered that, before coming here, you have fellow international students who have already taken this path, and they kind of advise you that when you get here, it will set in. And sometimes I just break down and cry because it's kind of difficult, yeah. So I usually find myself questioning whether I'm smart enough to be here, or somebody kind of deserves this opportunity to be here as an intern. And then constantly I encourage myself that somebody has done it and I can do it. I worked hard for this, and I can definitely be here, work things out for those who will come after me, yeah. So having this imposter syndrome with my identity and all that, I think it's a journey, and with time I'll be able to figure it out. Yeah. Alan?
Okay, for me, so going off what Dorcas just said, when I first came to the United States, different country, different architecture, for the first, I'd say, year, it was like this feeling that this is not real in a lot of ways. Everything felt so different. It felt like a dream. Everything was really, really different. And the perception of reality was different. I don't know if you can relate to that. The perception of reality first year was very different from what I was used to, and that was a difficult process to go through. There are a lot of challenges that you face on that in that period of time. You don't know anyone when you come here. Zero. You have to start. You have to start somewhere. Back home, you are completely entrenched into different social systems, family, school, university, and you come here and you start with a blank page. What do you do? But at the same time, I believe that presents an opportunity for every international student. You start your life from a new page, and you also have an opportunity to change the way you write on that page. You can change your style. Coming here, I became a different person. I started behaving differently. I started talking to people differently, became more social and open. And the most important thing in my journey here was the social connections and communities that I became part of, the sense of belongingness that I got here. And that came in the form of my clubs and my work at the Student Orientation Advising Resources, SOAR, for the 2 summers. For 2 consecutive summers. That was a transformative experience for me, and I know there are some people who are sitting in this audience, and I want to say thank you for being part of that experience for me.
Your experience, and if there's an international student in here, everyone has gone through such experiences, and these experiences are not new, but believe in yourself that you can do it.
Yeah, echoing what was already said, I would say that I was a first-year COVID freshman, so I got here. It was already, class were already in person, but it was to that point where everybody was really afraid. We were still we were wearing masks, and I had to get here 2 weeks early, then the already early day for my scholarship. I'm a DDA scholar. I'm a first waiver. Yay! If everybody knows what that is. And in order to get here early, I had to get here even earlier. And when I was flying here, I was literally one of the 5 people on the whole plane. And the whole journey was very, very impactful, because I always knew I wanted to go abroad, because with the dreams that I had and the things I wanted to do, I needed to go where the resources were. And unfortunately, because of everything that happened, colonization, yay, that's where it was, and it still is. So I always knew that, but I always imagined that moment as something that I wouldn't do alone, And I wasn't. I had so much help from everybody back at home. I would never be here had I not had the community that I did back at home. And they were very important to me. And for so many times, I questioned if I should get here, because if I were to stay, I wouldn't know exactly what to do, because I knew everybody, I knew what were the paths I would take, I would know exactly how to be successful. But I still chose to challenge myself and come here, and having to do that in such a lonely way, at least at first because of COVID, was a lot. I remember being in my dorm and being literally the only person on my wing. And I was in UG, which is a big dorm. So I'm still there. I'm a house fellow now, which is kind of a funny little evolving thing, but it was a lot. And then with the years as it passed by, I got used to it. I found a new community. I found new people that I care a lot about. I joined a lot of organizations. I do a lot on this campus. I had so many jobs, and also organizations. But I feel like one of the things that impacted me the most, and which everybody knew, especially at the very beginning of this journey, is that like it was the first time I was speaking my second language full time, because at least back at home we don't get we learn English as like a foreign language at school, but unless you go to a language school, you're not going to speak it very often. And it was my first time speaking that for so long, and my accent you can still tell I have an accent. It was even thicker back then, and a lot of people would assume that I'm not smart enough because of the way I sound, and that would be like, no, that's not the case. I'm correcting the grammar of my friend's paper. I know what I'm doing. So I'd say that definitely that's something I wish more people knew, and I think like y'all could agree with that like the way you sound does not define how smart you are. And honestly, I had to adapt. I don't want to lose my accent, because I feel like it connects me back at home, because I'm not from here, and I want people to know that, because I love being from Brazil. I love my country. So I feel like that's the main thing. And also in the sense of like, I wish more people would take the time to get to know where I'm from what it is, rather than the image they have on their heads. Because I swear, if somebody else asks me about soccer and carnival, I will riot. I love those, but there's more than that.
Thank you, Anne, for your experiences. So I come from Kathmandu, as I said, and when I say I come from the land of Himalayas, everyone assumes that, oh, Wisconsin should be similar to what you were born and raised at. Mountains, snow, cold. No, it does not snow where I was born and raised. I'd never seen snow to this level before I got to US here, right? I'd been to the mountains, and that's where I saw or felt cold or snow, but I'd never felt minus 40 degrees Celsius. I still talk in Celsius and kilometers and kgs, right? And I'm an engineering student, and I got to teach in here, and whenever there's a question, I still have to wrap my head around saying, okay, I got to talk to people in Fahrenheit and miles and inches. So a lot of different things in terms of the cultures that we are born and raised. I was born and raised by my parents. My mom would prepare all the meals. I'd never, ever thought that, oh, I would have to scout for food by myself. I would have to go and get groceries every weekend or so. And these are all frozen groceries. We would get the freshest groceries possible in our own backyards. The language barrier that Hannah talked about, people assume, oh, your English is so great. I didn't know that they had a certain perception about people from my background would not be able to talk to them in such fluent English. I still am learning. I still consider myself a student, but I can communicate decent well, right? But there are such biases and presumptions about international students that not just people from Nepal, but people from Brazil or elsewhere, everyone has to go through those challenges. Talking about experiences at UW-Madison campus, so I was at a different university before I moved to Madison, so I knew how things work in school. And I always say this to new international students, that if you have survived a tax year, a year that you have already filed taxes for, you can live your entire life in the US. You've seen the winters, you've dealt one of the most terrifying things, that filing taxes, and you have figured out, and you have figured out the insurance, right? So you've managed to survive for 6 months, you'll be able to survive your entire life in this country. So things like dealing with taxes or health insurance or managing your own finances, which we have never done back home, at least me. Maybe the same experiences with other fellows of mine in here. So, but I was here moving to Madison after 2 years of being in US. I moved here in January, mid-January, where it had snowed like anything, and I was driving down, and I was in North Dakota, so not a huge lot of difference, not a whole lot of difference. But still, the chill in here and the cold was difficult to adjust to, right? People say, oh, I'm from a country where it snows, where we have mountains, but we'd never, until and unless you be at that place where it goes to minus 40 degrees Celsius, you can never imagine how cold it gets. How many layers do you need to put to, right? I remember going to one of the orientations that ISS had. They said, oh, keep putting on layers instead of having a huge jacket. But it is difficult to get to that idea of putting on multiple layers, right? Where you're not used to doing all of those things. And then again, figuring out insurance. So I've been in the US for almost 7 years, and a friend of mine had an accident a couple of months back, and he called me up, says, I need to go to the emergency. I said, dude, I've never been to a hospital here in my 7 years. I don't know where the emergency room is, right? So figuring out those things as you go along, as things are thrown at you, you got to learn by yourself. And I think that's one of the things that international students have to deal with. And there's no one that I can call up and say, oh, dude, where is the emergency room that I need to take a friend of mine now, right? So figuring out that help, that somebody that you can ask for anything that you need to in terms of finances, in terms of all the legal things that you're bound to follow, that we have signed a document while filling out the visa applications. We don't remember a lot of those things. But then we got to abide by all the rules of this country, the land that we are in here, right? One of the other things that I find myself very fortunate is a couple of friends that I had. I'm somebody who had no contacts whatsoever when I moved to the US. I didn't know anyone. I was one of the first in my family to move out of the place. And there are a lot of international students who would be the first one out of their village or their town or their entire city that got on a plane for the first time and moved to a different country, a different world for making their life, their careers, and then trying to get to the school or pursuing their dreams. And I was one of those who had no one to talk to when I needed help with, what is a credit card? I didn't know that. I waited for a year or two to apply for a credit card. I didn't know that you should have done it right away, right? And then so I was at the airport when I was coming to the US, and then I asked for a sandwich and it said $5.99. How much for a sandwich? $5.99? That is $599. I imagined it to be $599. I didn't know that 99 means 99 cents. And that's what the culture that I was born and raised with, or that's where I was from. $5.99 for a sandwich, I only have $2,000. That's the max that I could carry, right? And I have to survive my entire year in the US with the money that I had brought from home, and I can't afford to pay $5.99 for just a sandwich, right? We're not used to the words or all the colloquial terms that are used in here, and we're not used to that culture. And it takes at least a semester to get used to all of that. In terms of UW-Madison, it has been welcoming, but there are a couple of things that I would have wished they were better in here. As with the numbers through ISS, we are almost 20% of the entire student population, 8,000 to 9,000 students in here, international students. But in terms of resources, there's only ISS that I know of. This is such a big campus that things are very decentralized in this campus. It's a huge campus. And the first time I was here, a friend of mine said, oh, your engineering campus is right next to the Union, and I landed up at Memorial Union and not the Union South, right? So things like those. This is a huge campus that you would have difficulty navigating through. And then, as I was saying, this campus is so decentralized that resources are at different locations, and international students have to go through and learn about which is the right place that I need to look for certain information. In terms of legal aspects, I will have to go to ISS. In terms of HR and all of those stuffs, we'll have to go to the HR's office, and ISS is not the place to go for all of these things. And in terms of academics, we'll have to look for our academic advisors, right? And I have had a couple of friends who would seek advices from their academic advisors in terms of taxation or insurance and all. And even the advisors are not well trained to inform them or to advise them that I'm not the right person you should be asking these advices. You should talk to International Center or HR's office. I had some of the experiences in these regards as well, where I had to talk to HR's office. I thought I did everything at my end, but then the communications was lagging in terms of notifying me that my employment authorization was expiring in 2 days, right at the end of December last year. Right. So the problem with this campus that I see being here for almost 6 years is the campus is very decentralized, but not all departments or the divisions of the school are well trained to deal with international students. International Center is the only resource that we got to talk to for our issues with visas and maintaining our legal status in here. But then we got to keep talking to different advisors in here. I wish every department, every division had one person or one focal contact where they would deal with international students, because we are almost 20% of the entire population in here, and I believe we deserve that allocation of funds and resources, at least in every divisions. Right. Yeah, please.
I second everything, because there's a lot of people that don't know particularities about we as international students. There are things that we cannot do because of the law. Like, I don't want to get deported. For example, we can only work 20 hours a week. My job as a house household is 20 hours a week. So if somebody asks, oh, you're just doing that, I need money. Okay, just get another job. I can't legally. And also things as in terms of also like career services, like I cannot just take a year off and work at a coffee shop because they won't sponsor my visa and I don't have a year to be here. They will kick me out after I graduate if I don't find anything else that's solid enough to either sponsor me or to get an authorization to work here, like an OPT or CPT, which is like its own thing. It could be its own talk with so much that's within that. And also in terms of documents and like advising services, like I changed majors. Nobody told me I had to update my I-20. I met with several advisors about that. Nobody told me. I figured out that I had to update my I-20 because ISS had a system that like emailed me like, hi, we noticed that your transcript changed. And I'm like, oh, if that was not there. And I got lucky because it doesn't always work because the way the system is, like it gets messy. And if I didn't have that, I could have been deported easily. And like, it was not one person, one department. It was all over the place. So it's like a lot of people need to know what they're doing because they're not just dealing with they're dealing with somebody's ability to stay in the country. It's very, very serious. Literally, our life's destiny is on their hands, even for a single advising appointment. And if you don't treat it as that, it's not gonna work. It's gonna be bad.
Yeah. So to add to that, I think one thing I struggled with coming in as a new international student was housing. Before coming here, there's a lot to figure out with respect to your visa process. Getting a date in Ghana to go for your interview is a huge struggle. Sometimes you would have to wake up at dawn just to hunt to see if the system is going to release dates for you to pick and then book for your appointment. So going through that is another process, which kind of renders you effortless. You get here and you're already stressed out, right? I remember applying to Eagle High twice. I couldn't get in to get an accommodation. So eventually I had to resort to an accommodation that's about 1 hour from campus. I got here good enough. My roommate is a good person. She's about 40 years. She picked me up from the airport, showed me around, helped me to figure out stuff, which kind of helped me. But I have to get on 2 buses to get to campus. I remember about a month ago, I took a bus from here, closed from class around 5:25, got to my second bus stop and had to wait for the final bus to my house. And I had to wait for 59 minutes. It was so cold. I I started crying because it was so hard for me. I was like, oh my goodness, housing is a big issue. I know the university is doing a lot with respect to housing, but I think there is more to be done because it really affected me. And as it stands now, it really affects me. So I promise I'm not going to cry. So I had to walk to my program coordinator's office, Mo O'Connor, God bless her. She's so good. Immediately I got to her office. She was like, Dorcas, you need to cry. She closed the door. And I started crying. I never knew I had to cry. I cried so much. And eventually she was like, I need to contact the administrators at Eagle Heights. They work things out. And 2 weeks later, I got a place at Eagle Heights, which I'm looking forward to moving in this weekend. Yeah. Yeah, so I believe accommodation is a big issue for us. And getting on buses, waiting in between buses, commuting is a big issue. Sometimes I spend 2 hours getting home. Close from ISS at 4, get home at 6, which is a big issue for me because by the time I get home, I'm tired and I don't get time to, study and put in the effort. So I believe accommodation is one thing I wish the authorities would have done something about it. Yeah. Alim.
This is honestly eye-opening to me because I'm an international student, but the problems that you just described, I've never experienced, and I'm not going to pretend like I understand them completely. It's what you described is in certain ways eye-opening to me because I've never experienced those problems and I never knew people go through those problems, and this is a big educational moment for me. What I want to say is I didn't understand that, and for university administrators, educators, the room is full of those people, right? I think the one mentality that might be helpful to approach every student with is, for them, this might be day 1 on campus. For you, this is not day 1. This might be your 5th year at university, 2nd year, 10th year. This might be your 2,000th student that you've talked and helped to. For them, you're the first point of contact in the university ever. And that was the mentality that we approached every student at my summer job at SOAR, which is, for us, this is day 91. For them, this is day 1. It means approaching every student, every family, with the same enthusiasm as we approached family on the first day. This is their day 1 for us. This is day 91 at the same time of approaching them with the same mentality, with the same enthusiasm, with the same amount of help that we want to provide them. And hearing about all these problems, I think it's important for people to approach those stories and those problems with the mentality, not with the mentality why some people have been able to figure out.
What's going to be your first question? It's going to be, oh, that's nice. Where are you from? Like, well, how do you like it? Or like, are you going to make assumptions? So right now, it's basically 2 things. Talking about it, do what you can as a person, individually to make your impacts, because your actions have big impacts as a person, as people, but also taking that to talking and making pressure and leading those issues to people that are in power that can make even bigger changes and make them hear us. Because if I try to meet with Chancellor, she might not be there. But if one of you all might try to, maybe she'll listen. So, yeah, things like that.
One other big common problem that international students face that has come up multiple times in conversations with them for me was that Dorcas and Hayano, you talked a lot about identity and developing a new identity based on your previous identity back home. However, you come to US, you develop a new one as well. A lot of international students come here, they develop that new identity, and for example, for Christmas, they go back home and they realize, oh, I'm now different. I develop a new sense of identity, so where do I belong now? I am a different person back in a foreign country. I have developed a new identity. I don't exactly fit in that because I didn't grow up in that country exactly, right? But I go back home, place where I grew up. I don't fit in here anymore again because I developed that new identity. So where do I belong now? I don't belong at home. I don't belong in a new country. I'm a different person now. And that is a very, very common problem that people face. And they will write a lot about that on internet and express it in conversations. The overarching theme of this diversity forum is bridging the divide, right? And you become different as an international student. You develop that new identity between the two countries, maybe multiple countries. You are different now. But that new different identity is entrenched in you having a different perspective now, an international perspective, a global perspective. And what gives us hope is that as we develop that new perspective that unites multiple countries, multiple continents, we now can join a force that will be bridging that divide because we have that new outlook on the world, that new identity and new perspective, and that brings all of us a lot of hope.
Thank you, Alan. I believe we're almost there, but I'd like to open the floor for questions if you have any. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing your experience, and thank you so much for being vulnerable and be open about your experience. I have a question about identity. So my question is that have you have a moment that you feel like you have to change who you are just to fit in, to assimilate, to be able to have a social group here with your domestic classmates, but you have to change yourself, sacrifice a part of you to be able to do that? And how is that doing to you, and how you are dealing with what is kind of that the takes on you?
Thank you for your question. So for me, I've had to, adjust the way I speak, my accent, and the way I dress, just so it may not seem like a big thing, but when you're with your peers, these domestic students, sometimes you want to initiate a conversation with them, and you don't really get the feedback that you expected you would have gotten from them. So sometimes maybe if I change the way I speak and speak in a way that they would be able to understand. Probably they would like to speak with me, because I've had instances that you try to initiate a conversation with somebody and they don't really understand you, or sorry about that. They don't really behave like they want to speak with. Sorry. I promise Sam I'm not gonna cry. Yeah. So yeah, instances like that happens, and I believe if you're a domestic student and you have an international student in your class, sometimes you can lower your expectations and look at them from a different perspective, and sometimes try to open arms to them, because they've come a long way, right? So they don't have to usually change something about them just to fit in, because changing something about you, it also renders an effect on your personality or something like that. So in Ghana, if somebody from the US comes to my school on an exchange program, we are really happy to have them. And if you're not talking, I will make sure you talk, because I know you're coming from afar and you don't have any family here. So we try to, open up to you and then just push ourselves on you, make sure you feel welcome and all that. So this is an instance that I've had to face, and I believe if you're a domestic student or a colleague and you're watching me, there is something that you can do to help international students in your class.
I can, I have something to share as well. So my name is Subodh. I don't think that's too difficult to pronounce, but that's the first thing that everyone has to go through when you introduce yourself, right? What's your name? Oh, Subodh. Subodh. There are a lot of things. And in terms of identity, I feel like I have learned the language. I've come here. I've done a lot of things to get here. But the first thing about my identity is my name. And that's very difficult for the people in here to understand. And then a lot of people I see change their names to make it easier for the others. But I always make fun of myself saying, I can take my name hundreds of times. Don't worry about making a mistake while saying my name. So what I do is I think from their perspective as well. A lot of times they are unaware of all of these things, and I say that okay, things happen. Maybe I might not be saying someone's name right. I can say Sam, but I don't think Samantha is that how she says her name. I might be mistaken in there, so I do not take it personal in some of those things. While coming from an identity perspective, I realize that, okay, because maybe I'm kind of old now, so I realize that these are small things that does not really matter to me. But there are a lot of vulnerable students who are 16, 18 years of age, and for them, these are a lot of, they matter a lot. So I guess, realizing that things like these small issues every day that they have to deal with, I think that's something that we need to be worried about or think through.
Yeah, mine's actually very similar to what you're saying. I did a summer, before my school started, I was part of SCE, which is a summer program. And when I was there, I went by Ray. My name's Hayani, because that's how you say it in Portuguese. But everybody would think it's Rayanne, because that's how it hit in English, where you're not aware how to pronounce it. So in the very beginning, I was like, it's not worth going to the trouble. I just went by Ray. But that just kept bothering me. And eventually, now I go by Hayani every now I go, and I'm happy. I will say that however many times you name it to. If I have to say 100 times to get my name right, I will. But just try to get it right, But honestly, there are still times that I just don't think it's worth it to go to the trouble of teaching people my name. If I'm at a coffee shop, I'll go by Ray. Sometimes I forget, actually, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. So it's all about I say putting the effort, and yes, you have to change, and it takes extra effort to get there, and it's hard having to go through that. But overall, I think it's worth it because I want to stay true to who I am, and that is part of who I am, and I want people to say my name right. And even if don't say correctly, just try and say correctly, or it counts a lot.
Hi, thank you all for speaking. I also want to say that I was born and raised in the US. I've been doing taxes for 12 years, and I'm convinced that no one understands how to do taxes. So we can be united in that. It's just super confusing. But I wanted to ask a question about mental health because I work at the business school. I'm a career coach for 2 master's programs that are 85 to 90% international students. And when I'm in coaching sessions, you bring your whole self. I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, but if students are struggling, I pick up on that. I'm very honest about my own mental health journey. I talk about it a lot. I know culturally sometimes people aren't quite there to have those conversations, but I also, have picked up a lot of you talk about how hard you work. You take 2 hours of buses. You do all of these extracurriculars because you have to, and you feel like you have to, and in a way you do have to do more to bypass the bias against international students, and I see that. But I also try to talk to my students about the necessity of taking time to rest and to take care of your mental health, to talk to someone when you need to. And I'm just curious about what your experiences have been with your own mental health, if you feel comfortable sharing. I know there are resources on campus as international students. Are you guys aware of those? What do you do to manage your mental health? And is there anything else, specifically for me as a career coach, but for anyone in this room, what can we do to help? We can't necessarily fix systems that are confusing, like we all don't understand taxes, but but we can help to support you in the ways that we can, including making sure that you have places to turn when you do need like mental health support?
Yeah, that really hits home with me, or to me, whatever. I would like to share more about that. So I had a problem with I had mental health problem, not a major one, but I did find myself my sophomore year, second semester, having those problems, where in the morning I would wake up, right, and then just don't want to go anywhere, and it's just difficult to go anywhere, and I started struggling academically in certain ways because of that. And I started getting up much later than I used to. And that was building over some time. And then it developed into a bigger problem my sophomore year, second semester. So it wasn't depression, but it was a lot of irrational thoughts that dragged me down immensely. And I found myself not being able to get out of bed certain days. And I've been looking for solutions for that, and I found that solution in the UHS's mental health resources that they provide. What worked for me was a program called Let's Talk. Are you from UW-Madison? Yeah. So Let's Talk program, for those who are not from UW, those are 20-minute sessions with an actual therapist, but those are quick, and you don't have to schedule them. You can just drop in and those people will talk to you. And this one individual told me, hey, you know what? This might not be just the irrational thoughts problem. This might be a problem where this might not be laziness, what he said. This might be something different than laziness. And when we started looking into that, it was much more deeper than that. Irrational thoughts that dragged me down. It was I wanted to do like blood screening, and I found out that I lacked certain vitamins, and which was really weird to me. And once I started, working with that, challenging irrational thoughts on a daily basis for multiple months, you start taking those supplements, and I feel great now. Again, after a semester, after a summer, I finally back into the game, if I can say that. So, and what that therapist at Let's Talk told me, you know what? This is actually really, really common. Really common, and people don't realize how common it is. So explaining to people that it is common and it is normal, and you're not a failure because you're feeling that way. This is actually the ultimate experience that people have. Plus academic advisors talking about that. I had to retake a course again, and she said, you know what, this is actually really common as well. You don't have to think that this is your problem only. This is very common. So yeah, just understanding that those problems are common, and that laziness is not always just laziness. It's something more deeper than that.
Thank you. You talked about getting support from folks you met at the grocery store, other international students or first-generation students, business fraternities, the stranger of your roommate, picking you up from the airport the first time, administrative units like Let's Talk or counselors and such. What would be something that we could do as a supportive element to that? Like, to what extent is the internet and what you learn from, I don't know, Reddit forums or whatever about how to do taxes as a international student or whatever. What's the balance there, and how can that be shifted for each of you in some ways, perhaps, or something else?
Thank you. Wonderful question. I think we're ending on a very positive note in here. So I think every individual counts. I'll tell you a story, just a quick one. I had a professor in mathematics, and while distributing out the assignments, he would ensure that everyone's name was spelled correct. He would put in extra effort. He would ask, did I say it right? If not, he would do it the next time. And next time, the next week when he was distributing the assignments, he would make sure that he would spell everyone's name correct. So small efforts like those, I think that would help. The other thing, there should be a dedicated page saying, this is what you should do, this is where you should look. For HR-related stuffs, you should go to HR's office and not ISS. For legal issues about your visa, you should only talk to your advisors at ISS, not your academic advisors. Hopefully, there would be a contact person at your department who could have those information, who are well equipped with informations that will guide you to the proper resource. I think at least College of Engineering or College of Letters and Sciences could have one single person or one single person working for them have enough information to guide them to the proper resources that international students have to go through. So I guess that would be one place to start. Thank you. I think we are almost timed, 12:15, 2:15. I don't know if we can take more questions. We can, yeah. Maybe we can chat offline after this. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you all for listening to us. And on behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank you all for being here this afternoon, especially Kacha and Sam for bringing us in here, bringing our voices to the mass in here. And thank you all. Have a lovely afternoon.
One big thanks to Kacha and Sam too, because we would not be here if it was not for them. Thank you all. We'd appreciate it.
Figure out how to do it. Why can't you? But rather, for these people, this is day one. For us students, this is day one. Sorry, I'm rambling. For me, for an educator, this is day one. For them, this is okay. I completely got lost in my phone. For me, this is day 2000. For them, this is day one. Approaching it with an open mentality and approaching it with the mentality that I'm the first point of contact I might be the first point of contact for them, and their destiny is in my hands, and that's a great mentality to have, in my opinion. Approaching every new student as a unique student, and approaching them as this is their first step ever.
Also, being honest with them, because depending on your legal status, you're going to have to work twice as hard to get half as far. I went to apply to grad school after I graduate, and I know that considering my citizenship status, I'll have to be the best applicant in the room to maybe get a chance as somebody taking me in. So be honest with them. When I'm doing all of that, it's because I know that I have to work way harder than somebody else that's a citizen would. Because I know that if we had the same curriculum and mine's not better, they'll clearly go with the citizen because that's just so much easier for them. So being honest with them and telling them, hey, this is a situation. That's what we have to do. And I was lucky enough to have great people that help me and that are still helping me through this whole process. Like Gia's right there. Like she literally picked me up at the airport the day off and showed me around. And having people like that is very important, because if you're not honest with your students and you're just gonna sugarcoat it like, no, it's okay, no. You have to work harder than them. And that's not going to change anytime soon. So be honest with them and tell them what they're facing, because the sooner they realize what's the reality on this campus and how much harder they're going to work, the biases they're going to face, that their professors are going to butcher the names every time, that if you're going out, you're a Latina woman, they're going to be like, oh my God. And you're like, no. That's going to happen. And they have to know, because if they don't know how to defend themselves and how to find a path and forge their path. Because that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to forge the path, like many have before, and many will have to even after that, because it's not going to get better anytime soon. I hope it will. I really have faith that at some point it's not going to be an issue anymore, but for now it is, and that's what we're going to have to work with.
Thank you. As you can see, with the different backgrounds that we come from, and we have completely different experiences. Alan, as he said, he was not aware of these things. Even he's an international student. I have been here among us. I've been here for the longest, and I've seen through my own experiences and experiences of my friends, a lot of things happening in here, right? all of these things that I've seen. And I'm yet to see a lot of other things. There are other challenges that which I'm still unaware of. One of the things I'd like to share is how difficult is it being an individual who comes from miles and miles away, right? So we had one of the biggest festivals back home yesterday. It's called Bhaitika, and my sisters would be worshiping for the long life and good health of their brothers, and we do the same for our sisters. It's not Diwali. Diwali was 2 days back, but it was yesterday for Bhaitika for us in Nepal. Now the thing is that we got to, and I'm not complaining, because I chose to come to the US. I was totally aware of these things that I will not be there with my family to celebrate all those festivals and all, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I have here, and I hope everyone else is here as well. But the things that we got to navigate through in daily life is, I got to talk to my family because they are waiting for me to be online and then at least do a video call for the celebrations that they are doing back there. And then the next morning, today morning, I had a deadline for a different paper that I need to finish it off before the time runs out, right? And then I have to ensure that there's no one else, unlike back home where my mom would be making me some breakfast. I have to make my own breakfast. I have to pack lunch. Like Dorka said, I have to look for my bus schedule to get to the campus because parking is way too costly and I cannot afford to get a parking spot here based on my grad student's stipend, right? I have to manage my finances as well. And then finishing up that, and then I have signed up for this forum because this is something that I'm very passionate about. I have to manage time for this as well, skip lunch or do whatever, right? So there are a lot of things that goes on in every day, and every single day, as Alan said, is a new day. It's not just the first day that you're here. Every single day you'll learn different things. And I've been very fortunate that I've had support of a lot of people in here and elsewhere in the community in Madison. The first time I moved to Madison, I am from Nepal, and then the first Nepali that I met was after 4 months at a grocery store, right? I'm a very people person. I like to talk to people. I like to share. I like to talk to people, make food, hang out. But then the first person that spoke the same language, it took me 4 months to find out, right? But then I have had very good opportunity of talking to a lot of people. I have made some connections, but it's my experience. And not everyone is able to do the same things that I did, or there are a lot of people who have done wonders that I am not able to do today, right? So everyone has a different experience. Everyone has their own different capability, but we are here because we wanted to achieve something. We saw opportunity in here, and the only thing that we are expecting from the campus is at least a little bit of concern in terms of all the challenges that we go through every day. There already are resources, the streamlining of the resources, the streamlining of all the manpower and all the legalities that we have to go through would help make our lives a little better than what it is today. Okay, enough complaining. Sorry. Dorcas, I'd like to ask you if there's any single experience that you would like to share. You've been here for almost a year now, and I believe you're the person who has first-hand experience. I've forgotten a lot that I had, my experiences from my first years and second years and third years. So I don't remember a lot of things, and I've been used to a lot of things that I even neglect things about. Oh, somebody complains me about how do I file taxes. I said, oh, I'll figure it out later in January. But somebody talks to her about taxes, then what is taxes? What do I do with taxes, right? So what are any peculiar experiences that you can share with us today?
Thank you for that. So the issue of unconscious bias, right? In the classroom, professors project course materials to help us, understand whatever that they are teaching. And in the policy space, you project a social problem. And this social problem always tends to be black people on the board, right? We understand the professor may not think of it in that way. Maybe, oh, I just want to choose this picture of this black person on the board so that the black people I have in my class can feel welcomed or, say, share in that same experiences. But as an international student and a fellow black person, you may take it in the wrong way, right? Say, we are discussing about policies in the community, social problems, and this same image that has been projected continues to be a black person. And you tend to feel some way like less of myself. or using speeches or clauses, say middle class, poor black people in the community. We know policies sometimes don't work in favor of these people, right? But sometimes putting it in a different way may reduce these stuff. And I know diversity is a big thing that university is on now, trying to bring in more international students or people from different backgrounds to, increase the diversity stuff. But if you continue to put in measures, structures that will welcome these international students from different backgrounds, I know we also bring potentials that we want to contribute to the university, right? I would like to graduate as a good student, be a good alumni, come back and contribute to UW-Madison. But if you're looking at bringing in people from different backgrounds and the structures to support them aren't that much strong, then it's more or less saying, we are just bringing you in to meet the diversity quota. That's something I felt when I came here. I was selected as a La Follette Fellow, so I got a fellowship and it's a scholarship. So one time in class, I felt, was I brought here because of this diversity stuff or because I'm smart and I graduated on top of my class? Is that because this is something I continuously battle with? So I believe the university can do more, putting together programs, policies, to strengthen. Because if you're bringing in these people, top students from different countries, and putting up measures for them, I believe it will also try to unleash their potentials to contribute to whatever the university is trying to achieve in the long run. So that's what I think.
In what context, if I may ask?
Anything you would like to share? Any particular experiences, different experiences that you might have felt that's way different that you would imagine that you would get here at UW-Madison?
Okay, I talked about starting your life from a new page, right? They say, people say it's easy to, whenever we say I'm going to start my new life tomorrow, I'm going to start from a fresh page, is that the idiom, right? Starting the life from a new page. I've heard this phrase before. It's easy to start your life from a new page. It's very difficult to change the way you write. And that's been very motivating for me when I come here. I'm starting a new life here, and I have to change the way I do things to become a different person, a better person, I'd say. And that came in the form of the social connections that I created. And I keep emphasizing that point, but I believe that's the most important thing an international student can do, like any domestic students, is find the sense of belonging in a community on campus. And we talk about it over and again, and UW-Madison emphasizes this point. Folks who feel sense of belonging on campus through those social connections have better grades. By 13%, I believe the statistics is. I'm not sure about it. It's a huge change. And I believe if you have social connections, you get entrenched into the system like a tree, essentially. And you have those roots that you put into the ground, and they help you to survive the storms. The storm comes, but you're entrenched in the system so much that that storm cannot blow you away. Because you have people who you can lean on in the days of adversity, and that came to me in the form of my business fraternity, to a lot of extent. Back home, I was a completely different person, introverted. I didn't have a sense of belonging in high school, for example, right? But I found that sense of belonging here on campus through the business community, and my first semester is always difficult. You're thinking, am I going to pass those exams? What do I do? Should I quit? Should I go back home? And I did have those thoughts, but what helped me to stay was the base that I established in the form of my business community. It's been such a great community that I knew this is the storm, but I now have a base to fall on, and that failure doesn't seem as dangerous anymore. And this is the idea of secure base leadership, right? As long as a leader in any organization provides you a base you can fall on safely, you will achieve anything. When you're climbing a mountain, as long as you have a secure base you can fall on, you're not scared of falling. And for me, and for all international students, I believe, the most important thing you can do is establish that community, that secure base you can be falling on and climbing that mountain back.
Thank you for sharing. I just have one quick comment on that. He said, should I even go back? The questions for a couple of us was, can I even go back? Because we've left a lot of things behind to pursue some dreams in here, and failure was not even an option. The secure base is always there, but failure is not an option. Your GPA goes below 3, you'll be reported, or you'll be kicked out of your programs. There are a couple of things like those. You don't file your taxes on time, there are legal issues. You got to ensure that your visa, it's not just your visa, there's something called an I-20, right? The document that makes you valid in this country is not just the visa that you obtain as a student, F1 visa, but there's something called I-20 that has to be validated, or that needs to be in the current date that proves your legality of your stay in this country. So do I even have a choice of going back home? Because I've left so many things behind to pursue my dream in here, my family, my career, my parents, everything that I had built until there to start a new pace. Do I even have a choice? That's something that dilemma always keeps, I think, in the minds of every international student.
Yeah, that is so true. At least for me in my situation, like, it was never an option to not be excellent in everything I do, because I know that if I'm not, I would not be here. And that's very, like, that's something that is in my mind all the time. But also, as international students, there's so many other things that are constantly in our minds. Like, I had to open my own internet, with, like, the phone companies, my own phone bill, my own internet account. I had to figure out how to pay for my electricity. I had to fill my own taxes as an 18-year-old in a country that I'm not from. And they were more complicated than, like, a lot of adults' taxes. My taxes were a mess. And I had to figure that out by myself as an 18-year-old. I had to go to cell phone companies as an 18-year-old and get my own phone bill with no like reference whatsoever. When I have emergency contact, what do I even put there? Because if I put my parents don't speak English. What's gonna happen? Like, they can't even, like, help me with that. If I put a friend, what if something happens with that friend and we're not friends anymore? I use my emergency contact nowadays. So there's so many other things that we have to, like, do by ourselves. Like, we don't have the privilege of having parents and being like, hey mom, it's cold. What kind of coat do I have to wear? They don't know it because there's no snow over there. It's warm. So, like, having to figure so many other things out by yourself with no guidance whatsoever, it's an extra tool that it takes on your mind. You're always thinking of other things that other people have the privilege of not even questioning. Like, my friends that are from here, they don't think, did I pay my phone bill? No, they're on their parents' plan. So they don't have to worry about that. So something else that I feel that also is part of the whole thing is also mentoring new students, because as a house fellow, and also I've been a peer advisor, a peer mentor, and I've done a lot of this kind of job with a lot of students, and I can see myself in them. When I'm telling them what I wish I was told my first semester here, like, hey, this is the cell phone company you should go to because it's the cheapest and with the best service, because those things and also other unspoken social norms that people don't know. Like, hey, actually, when you meet them, don't kiss them on the cheek. They'll take it the wrong way. And things like that I wish there were more people doing that and more systems in place to make people aware of that. Because when I have a lot of international students that I talk to, and even not international necessarily, a lot of other first-generation students that I talk to, and then I'm just like, yeah, let's talk. There's a lot. And also, like, so many things that I wish were more clear that are not, in terms of, like, funding, for example. I applied to my scholarship not because they said that they accept international students, but because they did not say that they did not accept us. There was no thing saying, like, we take F1 visas. There was nothing. So I took my shot, and it worked. But there's also so many things that, like, that's only for permanent residents or citizens. And that's so much and so often. So basically, everything we do, it has to be like, there's 3 other barriers within that you have to just like learn how to overcome. And honestly, it's hard, but it also helps you grow. I feel like I've grown so much since I got here, and I'm so much more independent than I've ever been, and I don't think I would be where I'm at right now had I not had those experiences. But at the same time, I don't wish that for anybody else. If that makes sense. It helped me grow, but I shouldn't have had to grow so early. If that makes sense.
Yeah, you know, you touched on such an important point, and since we're heading toward the end of the our conversation, right? So what? Yeah, we talked about all these problems, right? However, at the same time, a lot of progress has been made, right? And like Subodh had said, all of us are grateful to be in this community and in this country, and the support that has been given to us by this community. So we would like to be ending on the sense of hope, and to talk about hope, I'd like to ask you all a question, if you all don't mind. That sense of hope. What you described, right? As a house fellow, you see yourself and a lot of your students and a lot of problems that they face somehow remind you of your own problems. And what I discovered lately when I was talking to one individual in the university health services was, he told me there are patterns in a lot of students that are similar. For example, one pattern was that students, first semester is hard, second semester is hard, third semester is hard, and then they go into their fourth semester or fifth semester, and as things get continuously hard, they find themselves in a position when they can't get out of bed in the morning. And that is a very common situation, and people don't realize how common it is. People get on academic probations, they don't understand how common it is, and they think of themselves as a failure. So despite the fact that every person's problem is unique, every situation is unique, every challenge is unique, but the nature of these problems is very often very similar, because we are humans. And despite all of our differences, we have the same nature as humans. And I believe the fact that despite the fact that all these problems are unique, but the nature of them is similar, gives us a lot of hope, because it means that those problems have been investigated, they have been researched, educators are continuously working to fix them, and there are solutions to that. So I was wondering if you all want to talk about that. What are the common challenges that international students face, how to get through them, and so we can end on this sense of hope, that because all of our challenges are unique, nature is similar, that gives us a sense of hope, I believe, because there is a solution to them.
Okay. I will say that even though as an international student, every step or your success is predetermined by your immigration status, right? But there is a good thing about this, or one thing I figured out was that as I continued to miss buses, try to figure out how to, register for my taxes and all that, I felt just as Hyan said, I grew. Like, I realized there are things that in Ghana I didn't know, and as I came here and I faced these challenges, I just focused on the positive aspect, and most of the times relied on the intrinsic motivation that, you know what, you get through this. And the beauty about it is that somebody will come through the same thing, and you'll be there to guide this person. So it's not just all about you. When it goes to departmentally, I'd like to commend my career director, Mary Coco. Back in Ghana, she would send internship opportunities and all that, understanding that it can be difficult for you to land the desired internship that you want to, just so you can transfer the knowledge from classroom, gain the right expertise in the field and all that. She's always right there. She'll make the facts known to you so that you can always make sure you're doing the right thing to increase your chances of landing these opportunities. So in as much as we face these difficulties, it's not the end, right? There is always hope. And I try to focus on the positive side, knowing that this morning, I just took the bus and I realized that, I always used to, I light at this point and then wait so long for the next bus, which is the B Fitchburg bus. And then now I'm taking it to East Washington and Rethke, and then I take the A bus to, and I realized that this was the easiest part. Why wasn't I doing that, right? So it felt like, sorry to say, I was being dumb, but the good thing is, as you figure out steps, things get easier, right? And you get to be there for someone else. So that gives me hope. This morning I went for my econ class, took my second midterm, and I got a very good grade. And yeah, I'm so happy about that, knowing that as things go forward, as time passes, things will get easier. The professors are there, people from the department. Nobody wants to turn a blind eye to your issues, so far as you're putting in the work and then asking the right questions, going into them when it's necessary. You will definitely figure things out.
I complain a lot. Sorry. But as Alan said, there's hope. And I believe forums like these, where we get to voice our concerns, help a lot. I was lucky enough to be on the International Student Advisory Board. I've been on similar boards earlier as well. And I was able to raise my personal experiences in there. And things have changed, right? There have been efforts that, and I'm not complaining that the administration in here, the people in here are ignorant. It's not ignorance. It's the lack of resources. Everyone's overworked in here, and then things are not in place. That's the, I believe that's the problem. It's not about people not being concerned about you. It's the nature or the system that has been put in place is not catered, is not well catered to the challenges that international students have to go through. And I believe I've heard from Sam that there is a program for faculty and staff called Lunch and Learn every month that people can sign up voluntarily, and where ISS will bring out issues that international students have to go through. You cannot work beyond 20 hours a week. There are taxes that you would have to file as non-resident alien. There are health insurance things that you have to, or there are minimum number of grades that you have to sign up as international students. And things like these, I believe, needs to be communicated well to the admins in here, the faculties in here, and the staffs, so that not everyone has to go through the same experiences that a couple of us have gone through. The other thing about housing, right? You land in a different country, you'll have to figure out housing. And when I got to the US, I had a lot of things to figure out before my flight that I did not even think about housing. I didn't know that. I thought, oh, we'll figure it out over there. I felt like it's my own place, right? But then it's not. You land at an airport, you don't know how to get out of the airport for the first time itself. There are a lot of questions that you need to answer at the immigration stop that you'll be so nervous that, okay, what do I do next? And then you go and ask for a sandwich and he says $5.99 now, right? So you're scared, right? A person who knows nobody in this country, you are at a completely different place. You're thinking you'll make the best out of life in here, but then the first hurdle comes at your immigration desk where you'll be asked a lot of questions. And it's okay, because I signed up for that. It's not that I'm complaining about that. I signed up for the things that I'll be able to do it in this country. But then challenges like $5.99, what $5.99 means. Challenges like, how do I get out of the airport? How do I book an Uber or a taxi or a cab? Back home, I can just raise my hand and say taxi and I'll be home, right? Here, I don't know that. And I didn't have a phone when I got here. I didn't have a SIM card. I had a phone, but I didn't have a SIM card. Getting SIM card, having a person to call to, I didn't have anyone to call to, right? So things like these are a lot of challenges that most of us have to go through. And as Hayane said, we grow with all of these experiences that we have gone through. And we, as international students, we've lived here for a couple of years, I think are one of the best resources for a lot of new coming international students. And I wish I had someone to talk to. I wish there were programs like International Peer Mentor that ISS now has, where we could look up to those people, or we could call them up, or we could text them up saying, hey, where do I go and get my groceries? Where do I find a SIM card? Or how about housing? Is Eagle Heights a good place to live? Or do I need to live an hour far from the campus, right? And I believe these are the experiences that everyone will share, and we're I guess every one of us who have lived through those experiences will be very happy to share, to ensure that these people will not have to go through the same experiences that we had. And I believe there's hope, and that's all about hope, right? And anything? Sorry.
Hi, and if you don't mind, after that, I would like to add one more point.
Go
We're good?
for it.
Okay, great, thank you.
No worries. I would say that, again, as I said, there's a lot of things we have to deal with, a lot of extra things that have to be constantly on our radar, like health insurance. That's a big thing. I have my own health insurance, and that's not on my family's, and that was so hard to figure out how to work with, because the U.S. health system is so different than the health system back at home. But at the same time, as everybody has been saying, a lot of progress has been made. Sam and Kasia, they're right there. They heard me complain so much. When I first got here, I have a lot to say, and I know a lot of students have a lot to say. And I feel like as long as somebody is willing to hear and do things that can help those students, that's basically how we begin. The fact that you all are here, willing to hear us and what we have to say, that matters a lot. But it cannot stop there. You hear what we have to say, and then you do what you have to do to cater to our needs. So, for example, ISS. There's a very limited budget. Who takes care of the budget? Why is the chancellor not here? Where is the money? We need that too. And things like that. So I feel like what we need to do, and where my hope lies, is to have enough people that care about these issues and that have voices that are going to be transferred over until we get to bigger people that can make the changes. But also, it's not just up to them. It's up to us every day and how we talk with one another. If you meet me and I tell you I'm from Brazil, how are you going to take it?